Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Corning Painted Post High School's Junior Parent University. Thank you so much for being here tonight on such a nice evening. I hope some of you guys are outside on your laptop enjoying this nice weather tonight. So thank you for being here. My name is Kaleen Muldoon. I'm a school counselor here at Corning. Helping with tonight's event to field questions are Jill McLaughlin, also from our school counseling department.
Hi, everybody.
As well as Christy Radford, who is our IB Diploma Program and AP Testing Coordinator.
Hi.
I'd also like to give a shout out tonight to Mike Simmons and thank him for being here and helping put this event on. He is the expertise behind my Zoom technology tonight. This event is going to be recorded, so you all know. If you need to watch it at a later date, you can do that. It's found on our CPP YouTube channel. So tonight, we'd also like to welcome our guest speaker, Dr. Dean Reinhart from Suny Buffalo State College. He is the Associate Director of Admissions and here to speak to our families about the college process from an admissions point of view. We put tonight on because we wanted to offer some information for families. We know this is a really tough year. There's a lot of challenges and changes, but we hope tonight can help answer some questions and energize you all as you embark on such an exciting time in your students' lives. We realize this is a lot of information surrounding the college search and the college application process. But please know that your student school counselor here at Corning is always willing to meet with you and your student to help navigate these waters. So please don't hesitate to ever reach out. We're here to help. If you have questions during the presentation, feel free to post them using the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. We'll be monitoring these throughout. If you see your question disappear in the chat in the Q&A, this just means that Jill and Mike have captured it to bring it to the conversation maybe at a later time. If you have questions specific to your child, please reach out to their school counselor directly and they'd be happy to help you answer those. So following Dean's presentation tonight, we're going to demonstrate a college search engine that's found on our Naviance page and then answer any remaining questions after that. So without further ado, I think we're going to get started and welcome Dean. Thanks for being here, Dean.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. And Kaleen, if you could stop sharing your screen so I can share mine, that would be great. Great. All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Dean Reinhart. That's my name. I'm not the Dean. That is my best joke, though. So if that wasn't funny to you, this is going to be a challenging 35 or so minutes listening to me. But I want to emphasize that this process can be overwhelming, but that you have a lot of resources that are available for you, including the counselors at Corning Painting Post. Do not hesitate to reach out to them. They are very active in the counseling community. They have connections with multiple campuses, and they have a lot of answers. And if they don't, they can reach out to professionals that are on the other side of the table as well. So if there's one thing I want to reassure you is that this process is something that millions of people go through and nobody dies from this process, okay? You need to go through it. It's challenging, you're going to be uncomfortable, but you're going to grow from it as you get through to the other side as well. Few housekeeping items. I talk really, really fast. That's part of the business of salespeople. You never know how long you're going to talk. It's brave letting an admissions person stand up and talk. But this is my favorite presentation because I'm not talking about any specific campus. I'm talking more about the process. The presentation will be recorded. In addition, I will provide the PowerPoint and also any of the handouts or things that I reference as we go. My name is Dean, as we mentioned already. My three kids are President Chancellor. My daughter's name is Emperor. We have very high hopes for her. Great names for higher education. And I throw that out to you right now because 35 years ago, I went away to college myself. And I've spent all of that time on a college campus since that time. In fact, that's 6 different campuses. And it's not that I can't keep a job, which is also one of the reasons why I can do this presentation, is that I've been in multiple admissions offices. I've reviewed files for multiple campuses. And if you want to go through my resume, I'm happy to talk about that later on. But I don't throw that out to impress you, but more to impress upon you that there's a lot of great schools in this country. In fact, there's about 4,500 schools, and many of you are getting mail from every single one of them, and it can be overwhelming. And that's part of what we're going to talk about tonight. Some of the changes that are happening, I'm going to ask you to critically think about this process, a little bit about the philosophy. That's going to be the first part. And then I'm going to switch into nuts and bolts and then open it up to questions at the end. So without further ado, let's move forward. Obviously, some of the significant changes. Remote learning is something that every college in the country is aware of. In fact, 95% of the classes on my campus right now are remote. We're optimistic that by the fall, we'll be moving back. Obviously, the Regents exams were suspended last year. They were suspended in January, and now it seems like we're down to 4 maybe for spring, for this June. Deadlines have been changing and moving. You need to stay on top of it. Obviously, creative grading from March 2020 on. AP was moved online. The AP IB exams were not held. And that's one thing I want to mention. A distinct advantage you have by attending the school that you do is all of the opportunities you have. I said, make sure you use your counselors, but make sure you take advantage of all the opportunities from the IB program. And excellent thing about the IB program is that you offer, both the diploma and also the coursework, if that's something of focus of you. The AP SUPA ACE credit from Corning, in addition to career and tech ed through BOCES and the New Vision program. Most high schools have 1 or 2 of those. For your school district to have that many schools, so many options, is amazing. Visiting has obviously changed significantly. A lot of it's virtual. We do over 900 different virtual events a month on most campuses right now. And you can see a lot of things, but also a lot of campuses are open that you can drive through. You may not be able to enter buildings, but as you start to look through this process, primarily juniors are on the conference tonight, you can get on a few campuses, drive around. There's several schools within an hour or 2 of where you live that you can get on to find out what you're looking for. Really, there's a lot of variety out there, and I want to emphasize the process of not being too nervous about this, because only if you Google college search best practices, there's only 605 million hits that you get from that, or if you Google college planning, there's 1.7 billion. Do not worry, I've read all of them, so I'm comfortable with what I'm sharing tonight will help move you forward. So here are the definitive answers, but I have to tell you they're borrowed from a lot of different places. Open houses obviously have changed significantly, and standardized tests have changed in terms of whether they're offered, not offered. Subject tests have gone away completely through the process, and that's part of the change of the College Board going forward. I know that as juniors, you're in a difficult situation right now in terms of test, not test. A lot of campuses went test optional this year. We don't have definitive guidelines for fall of 22 yet of what campuses are going to do. Suny has not yet made a declaration, as well as a lot of privates have not. If I were advising you, I would certainly go with the recommendations the counselors are recommending. I support that if I had a junior at home, I would be looking specifically to take an SAT or ACT this spring and then repeat one of them in the fall. Or by the fall, we should have a clearer sense of what schools you might be looking at and what those schools might be considering. The reason why I say that you should still take them is even if you definitively know what your first choice school is, that can change. There's a lot that can happen between now and the fall of 22. So having those tests in your back pocket are going to be beneficial to you. Other changes is this thing called Operation Varsity Blues. There was a Netflix special that just came out about this. And I want to reassure you, the thing that is most prevalent in this entire documentary and also all the stuff that came out is that there were no school counselors involved. There were no admissions people involved. This was external and it was very limited. I've been in this field for many, many years and certainly people talk to me, oh, how do you get in? By and large, the majority of students get in by putting together a good application, which is predated by having a good overall transcript and challenging courses at the high school level. And we'll talk more about that. But there were 2 different scams. One was they were paying other people to take the exams for them or helping them after they've taken the exams, correct the questions. And the other one was pretending to be athletes. And less than 2% of all high school athletes ever make it onto an athletic team in college. So these are small pathways. And I think before I go on to standardized tests, talk a little bit about the fact that there's really 2 different types of college admissions. There's 4,500 schools in the country. And then there's 50 top schools that have selectivities that are smaller than most places, or the brand names I like to call them, the Ivies. And certainly there's always some students who can consider that option, but they should always consider those reach schools, because some of those campuses this year alone with test optional have seen a 60% increase in applications, which in essence is lowering some of the accept rates to those schools down to about 4%. And that is significant. So we'll talk more about that as we go. Other thing that's changed, and I think this is why you should still take the SAT or ACT, or why I would advise you to. This past year, of the students that submitted applications, 44% of them did submit and include SAT or ACT. And the year before, it was 77% for the Common App. You can see there's been a significant difference. 55% of the group that always required them went down to 17% the following year. I'm confident, and one of the things we've seen as we've gone through this process is that campuses have always had the ability to review someone without a standardized test score. I want to say sometimes we've used it as laziness or just to make a quick decision and move on. But rest assured, campuses who've been doing this for a long time can look at an applicant based on their academics, based on their recommendations, their extracurriculars, clubs, and organizations, and make a very, very informed decision about what works, what doesn't work. Some basic philosophy to start, and that is that colleges need students. That's evidenced by the mail that you're getting every single day. There's lots of excellent schools and many happy students at all of them. Certainly setting, size, and location is what varies. 2/3 of all students get into their first choice college. Let that sink in, 2/3. 93% get into their first or second choice. The majority of students find a good match from schools that they've looked at. And how you do that is by planning, by being here tonight, not being outside on a gorgeous night, and taking some time to learn more about this process. And not trying to cram it all in one night, but work over the next year or so to figure out what's next and how to go about this. Reality-wise, going back to those brand name schools, there's 2.9 million high school grads every year. The Ivy Leagues have 14,000 first-year spaces. Harvard has 1,600 first-year spaces. So those 14,000 spaces, you're competing against 38,000 valedictorians, 38,000 salutatorians, 38,000 class presidents, 38,000 presidents of NHS, and all sorts of outstanding stuff. The media attention really on those select few, and you need to understand there's a lot more than those schools, and there's a lot beyond that. We're going to talk about the process. Make sure you involve your school counselor. The necessity of a degree for those students who are motivated to get it is essential. Unemployment that you've seen during this pandemic is lowest for those individuals who have a bachelor's degree or higher, or any college degree, even if it's a 2-year associate's degree. Anyone in the US can go to college. That's different from other schools and other countries, I should say. And there's more than one route. More than 50% of all students start at a community college, which you have one very, very close to you. And many of you have taken courses through there, or Syracuse University Project Advanced. Don't limit your search right now based on private or public, in-state, out-of-state, commuting, living on, small, large, military, or single sex. There's a variety of options out there. You do not have to sign on any dotted line until you see exactly who's putting, or what they're putting out there as far as things go. There are a lot of free resources out there you should take advantage of. For a student, obviously be creative. Make sure you find a match that you can justify. Be honest with yourself. If someone else is pushing you to something and that's not what you want to do, you need to stand up and say, okay, I've seen plenty of students who've gone away to college because someone else told them they should go, and they get there and they don't do well. And then that's something that's going to be around them and bog them down for years to come. That's why it's important for you to be able to communicate what it is that you're going for. And you may not know today. Most of us don't know who we're going to spend the rest of our lives with today. It's okay not to know what you're going to do with the rest of your life today. Colleges have sets of courses through the first 2 years, allows you to take a sampling of courses to figure out what direction you may want to go, or what you may want to pursue. Don't be afraid to take a risk. I want to emphasize that communication is key in this process. And obviously this can be unbelievably stressful for you, but also for your parents or guardians. They obviously want the best for you. In most cases, they love you. They may have dragged you to participate in tonight's session. That's part of what that's what a family's love is about. Understand though, that you owe them the ability to communicate with you. You can't just shut down and say, I'm not going to talk about this. Maybe agree to 20 minutes, every couple of days to say, let's talk about what we need to do, or take a family trip, get in the car, drive a few different campuses, walk around, see what it is that you're looking for. Make sure that you can relate to a campus. Understand that all of those mailings that you get, we purchase over 80 million names a year. And obviously there's not 80 million grads, but multiple schools are purchasing your name so that we can communicate with you. Make sure you take some time to look through that. Critically think about it though, and we're going to move into that in just a minute. Be able to tell your story when you apply the qualities, your character, your personality. Make sure that you proofread, edit, and rewrite. Don't save the essay till last. The essay prompts for next year are already out. If you want to work on that, you may be working on it in some of your English classes as well. Build towards this. I always throw out asking people if they've ever visited a doctor or gone to an emergency room. And I ask how many of them, before they let that nurse or the doctor touch you, say, hey, where did you go to school? In reality, we don't. A degree is a degree is a degree. And by and large, the degrees are very comparable. We're a very litigious society. There's nobody suing any of us because we're not doing a good job educating. There are a lot of great choices out there, and there's probably more than one first choice for every one of us. Where you go to college matters less than if you go to college. Make college the big deal. Understand that this is marketing, and understand that you're going to see smiling faces. And if you come across a sad student anywhere, please send it to me because I would love to see it. If there was ever, if there's water or lake on a campus, they take a picture of it in the buildings behind it. If they don't have that option, but there was a puddle one day and they can do a reflection photo, they will. I throw this out to make fun of us, but also to point out to you that you need to critically think about this process. The other thing that you have that I didn't have when I started this process 30 years ago, 35 years ago now, was that you have social media. Admissions offices cannot hide from you what current students think about our campus. You can Google any of our campuses and you can jump on any of the social media platforms that you use, and you're going to get perspectives from students. That's not something that we can shield you from. But I do want to throw some thought process or a little bit fun here. Critically think about this, okay? This campus sent this brochure to my daughter. They have 8,000 students. How many of you think that those 8,000 students get to play with the little cute cub? Probably very few of them, right? Okay. Understand that the desired reaction is for you to say, ah, isn't that cute? And that's exactly what my daughter did. And she did apply here. And she was accepted, and now she's actually considering it. So this emotional tug was exactly what they were hoping for. One of the things I don't think they were thinking of is that the student was actually bleeding. And that should have been airbrushed out. Typically we would have, but moving on. I want to emphasize the University of Chicago because, as you can imagine, I'm a secret shopper. I'm not on all 4,500 schools, but I certainly go out to a lot of schools, and I get a lot of different brochures every single year. Plus, my children have gone through this process, so I've seen it. Now, keep in mind that the University of Chicago average SAT is 1,500, ACT is a 34. Very competitive, top 50 school, awesome school. But this is them making fun of the reality of what we say. They sent out this brochure saying, we understand it's stress inducing. We give you deadlines. We tell you we have the most of this, we have the most of that, and we have an iconic shot of the campus. And then inside they give advice, what you should do. But then on the back, it says this great line, bet it's all starting to run together, huh? So we figured we'd pass a few tips along. Hopefully it helps. And if not, maybe this cute puppy will. And then they show you a picture of a puppy. Fair market research though, the following year, if not, hopefully this cute kitten will. And then a picture of a kitten. We do separate mailings to different students based on demographics. This is a stat that I don't say too much, but I will share with you that colleges spend over $1 billion a year on research and purchasing names and reaching out to companies. And I'll share with you one of those companies in just a little while. But I throw this out to you to understand that you're the most marketed to generation of all time. You need to understand that. You need to take a step back and understand, what are they saying? Look at the numbers. When they say 100% of our students are X or 100% of our students are Y, understand that they may not even know where 100% of their students are. When a student says 99% of our students are employed or in graduate school, the small text might be of the students that responded to our survey. I throw this out to you just to be honest with you about this profession. I love this profession. I think it's very ethical by and large. And I want you just to think about this as you go. The first part, as I said, is very philosophical. I have a PhD. This is what I do, I think. The following year, they obviously went with the cat, and they threw the cat out again. And then the next year, they went an entirely different way. Totally much more academic, sending a chemical formula. The only thing interesting about it is the chemical formula is for caffeine. So the brochure that they sent was a map of all of the different locations of where you can get caffeine on the campus, because certainly students should make a decision based on that, similar to whether you can bring a car to campus or not. Those are criteria that you want to throw out there. They're my favorite of theirs, though. I saved the coolest for last. They talked about all their fictitious alums that are in movies. Obviously, Indiana Jones taught at the University of Chicago, so clearly you want to go there. But then there's others. The Martian was there. Harry met Sally at the University of Chicago and then drove back to New York. And then Jack McCoy, who's an amazing litigator on Law and Order, the original one, the first one of the 17 or 18, he went to University of Chicago. So there's a lot going on and there's a lot out there, and I throw that out to you. How do you go about finding answers? And I throw out that we spend billions of dollars every single year here. It's important for you to find essential and accurate information. Your school counselors are going to guide you through this process. They're going to check in with you, not all overwhelming you at once, but every so often saying, okay, these are the things you should be working on now, or this is what you should be thinking about next. Follow that template as you go through the junior year and the rest of your senior year. For you as a student, one of the things you want to continue to focus on, though, is your academics. It's your 3-year average that you're going to first apply to college with. So you have the remainder of this year, this 3rd marking period and the 4th marking period, to make a difference. Obviously, we know the junior year is typically the most challenging. You want to make sure you keep your GPA up and stay strong as long as you possibly can. But I understand you're going to see marketing fatigue. Reach out to teachers, reach out to parents, family members, friends, but understand I'm biased. I'm a salesperson, okay? I think my campus is amazing and you should consider it. And you're going to find that amongst all of us in this profession. We shouldn't be doing it if we don't believe our schools are valuable and worthwhile. But also when you talk to older people who've been out of school for a few years, they're not up to date on what's happening on each of our campuses. Our campuses have evolved from the time that anyone else went there. Having said that, you still do need to attend your parents' alma mater if they did go to college, just so that they can walk around and say, oh, I did this. And you'll never imagine that your parents were ever that young. But in reality, they were you going through this process, for many of you at least. Obviously, you can always check a college website. There's college fairs that are virtual right now, but they'll be back in person before long. Visits will ramp up. Some of the private schools are offering visits. Most of the public schools, based on the order of the governor, are not really doing much right now. Also, stay on top of your inbox. We communicate with you via inbox, your email. You may want to set up a personal email just for this college search, but then make sure you check it. 2 reasons why you might want to do it, so that when you're done and decided, you don't have to hear from us ever again. And the second reason is, if you set up a separate email, you can share that with your parents and give them access to that so that they can come in and look at it. Because a lot of what we're communicating is stuff that they're interested in as well. 2 websites that I'll give you, and then also just a Google search that you can search for. collegescorecard.ed.gov is the government database for all colleges. We have to submit what's known as our common data set. And you can also Google common data set and then insert a school. You'll see what if you're a geek or a numbers geek, you can look at it that way. But common data set and then a school gives you the rough data. College Scorecard interprets that data for you and breaks it down. It gives you such stuff as retention, how many students come back from freshman to sophomore year, what the average amount of debt a student comes out with based on family income, how many years it takes to graduate on average, the retention rate, all of that stuff is there. That's valuable information. And if we falsify that data, our federal aid can be in jeopardy. So that is by far one of the most honest and open places that you can go. There's also College Navigator, which is run for National Center for Education Statistics. They have a few more robust search engines. They're using the same data from the common data set as well. I also wanted to remind you that certain vendors, there's a paid aspect to that. Certainly the software in school, and I cannot emphasize Naviance is an amazing tool. Naviance, which you're going to get a demonstration from once I finish talking in another 20 or so minutes, gives you access to look specifically at students who've been at Corning Painting Post in the past, how they've done at each of those environments, but also get detailed information. The one thing I will tell you, though, about all of this, rankings included, and we're going to go through that as well, is that understand there's also proprietary ownership of paid vendors here. In fact, today I counted, I received, whoops. All right, today I got 12 emails from vendors asking me to purchase their product. And actually I got 3 job offers as well, or searching to apply for jobs. You know, there's not a lot of people out there that want to do what I do in terms of recruiting 16, 17-year-olds to a college. But this is the email that I wanted to cut and paste. So Dean, I'm following up on my email of last week regarding expanding your presence with, and I'll leave out the school. Your school can get featured with a full page ad in our annual most popular guidebook. These are ranking books that you purchase. And I, based on how much money I pay them, can be placed more prominently. This is just like Google searches. People can actually, get prioritized there. But they're promising me that if I spend on the enhanced profile, I'm going to get 10 times more traffic and I'm going to get more names. Okay. Understand this is just evidence of what we go through. These are the two websites I mentioned before, College Scorecard and the National Center for Education Statistics. Obviously, Suny has a robust website as well to look and search. But as I said, there's many private schools that are just as competitive financially as SUNY schools if they're offering good merit-based aid or tuition discounting. In other words, most campuses have a sticker price, but that may or may not be exactly what a student pays to go there. There can be things that are broken down further. Now, US News and World Reports, all of you remember, it once was a magazine that has since gone bankrupt, but yet this ranking still gets produced every single year because it generates so much money for them, for people purchasing their guidebooks. And understand that some of this is directly correlated to the campus. The more affluent a campus is, or the higher income students that enroll at a specific campus, the higher ranked they're going to be in US News and World Reports. One of the questions is social mobility. Other is class size or faculty compensation. If you're an Ivy League school with a couple $100 billion in endowment, you're going to be able to pay a little bit higher than other campuses. Other things is graduate indebtedness. This comes down to how much you have to take out in loans. This, I'm saying, take it all with a grain of salt. There's a lot of different ranking systems out there. Even average alumni giving rate, that obviously benefits those schools that enroll more affluent students. The next two slides, I took off the web of a dad who actually had columns for each of these, and he made his daughter fill out each of these for the campuses. I will provide at the end a link to mine, and I'll send it on to the counselors tonight, of the one that I used for my children. But I throw this out to you just to give you a sense of all of the different data points that are out there. And then I will also simplify it. I always say setting size and location is key, and that's part of it. How far away from home that you're willing to go. What can you afford? And that conversation you should be having right now in terms of the overall cost. Will I get a great education in a place that fits me with people that I feel good about? And a lot of that is the gut check. You're going to have the opportunity to get on a campus at some point, and you're going to open the door of that car and say, oh, I can picture myself here, or no, I can't. I think that's beneficial for you to get that perspective as you go. Some of the school data that you want to collect, obviously the name, the location, the 25th and 75th percentile. We have to report the middle 50% of our SAT or middle 50% of our GPA, which means that still 25% of our students fall below that GPA that we report. So don't immediately rule yourself out. Even if you see the data in Naviance that says you shouldn't be considering it, you might want to look into it a little bit differently. Percentage of students living on campus, percentage of students in-state, out-of-state, what the residence halls are like, what are the deadlines, what tests are required, teachers' recommendations. And then the ones I love down at the bottom, I always make my children apply to at least one Ivy so that they go through the process. And this year I was going through that with my daughter, and we got to one school and she just looked at me and she, honestly, Dad, these school colors aren't working for me. So everything aside, Ivy League school, great school, she crossed it off the list. Those are the things that are okay. It's okay for you to cast your net far and wide and then narrow as you go from there. And then how you go about applying. I have thrown out a lot. I will pause for just a brief second before I go into the final second half and ask, are there any interruptions here that you guys want to throw in questions, or do you want me to go forward? I'll keep going forward. How you schedule a visit. I want to emphasize that it's important to schedule a visit in advance. My wife and I used to just go visit friends' houses unannounced. We're not their friends anymore. So please take the time to make a reservation. Let us roll out the red carpet, but then don't just go on the tour itself. Walk around on your own, go up to students, don't grab them or anything, but just go up to students and say, hey, tell me about your experience. Most campus students are going to give you a perspective of what it's like. Summer obviously gives you a broad overview. Many campuses will be open this summer. Don't visit too many, or they're going to blur. You're going to get in front of a lot of people like me. As you can tell, I can talk really, really fast. I'll tell you all the great things about my campus and I'll move on. Understand that you need to take all of that with a grain of salt and take a step back and analyze what works for you. Certainly a campus tour is important. Admissions presentations are beneficial. Some campuses will require interviews or recommend interviews. It's up to you. You can go back to the schools that are your top schools in the fall, or even after you've been accepted, after that, you can go back in the spring. We're going to invite all of our accepted students back in the spring of 22 to come back one last time to look before the deposit deadline. Understand that outside of the classroom is important. You're going to be in class about 15 hours per week. Make sure that you see things that excite you on the campus, the facilities, the community, the options that you have beyond the classroom. Obviously, you're going to do homework and you're going to do those things, but you want to have fun outside as well. And there's a lot of virtual options right now. Suny has a great site that breaks down all of them, but every campus, both the privates and the public, have a variety of options, and they spell it out for you as well. The application process, multiple ways to go. You can use the Suny application, the Common application, the Coalition application. The Common is the broadest. It has the most number of private schools and public schools. It has all of the 4-year Sunys on it, and a few of the 2-year that are 4-year combination Suny schools as well. The local application, some of the private schools, if you apply directly with them, may waive the application fee. Now that's a marketing gimmick because they'll waive the $40 or $50 application fee if you're willing to pay their full tuition costs or costs around it. Take that all into consideration. I will throw out there that understand that there's some processing time involved. While you may submit it and think that things are instant, understand that your counselors behind the scenes need to process, they need to load up applications, they need to load up transcripts, they need to, it's great that, you're the only person in your class, but you're not. There's multiple students. We get about 16,000 applications a year, and each of those applications have 10 to 15 pieces of materials that get added. That is a lot of paper that needs to be moved around. Yes, a lot of it is paperless now, but it still needs some time to process and get there. Understand if you're mailing stuff, it's going to take a little bit longer. We do typically will send out confirmations and reminders. You need to communicate student with your counselor, and counselor communicate with the students on a regular basis. Oftentimes you'll say, oh, I applied, and then you never told your counselor. So unless you go through their process, whether it's through Naviance or some other form, telling them to forward the transcript, that may not happen. There's early decision, which is a binding process. If you go through this process and realize that this is the first choice and only choice that you want to go to, you can apply early decision. You then sign a statement saying that I'm going to go to this school if it's admitted. The counselor signs a statement and the parent or guardian signs a statement. This should be if financial aid is not a concern and if it is absolutely positively your first choice. Now you step back and you realize that many schools admit a few more students early decision than they do. So there's a game to be played. You might want to balance that out. Early action is just we take action early. Some schools offer that, some don't. Understand when we open an application, we're certainly looking to admit you. Don't rule yourself out. Your academic record is what you're going to present, and it needs to be a strong academic record. AP, IB, honors courses are all awesome to take, but if you're getting 60s and 70s and just barely passing, that's not going to benefit you. It's your 3-year average that colleges take a first snapshot at. It's that GPA that's going to be crucial. And clearly, there's clear admits, there's clear denies. Same thing in college admissions. If there's a clear, strong GPA, you're going to get in. If there's a clear, low GPA, we're going to deny you. The challenge is you're going to be on the bubble at some schools. In other words, you're going to be in that middle of not a clear admit, not a clear deny, but you don't know exactly what school that is going to occur at for you. And as such, it's important for you to do the best job you can putting your overall application portfolio together. Obviously, a standard courses there, and then having a strength in one area is exceptionally fine as well. Test scores, depending on what the school looks for. We certainly look at the academic performance. Upward trends are better than downward trends. If tests are involved, we look at that. Activities involvement, I'll give you a slide on that. Letters of recommendation, college essay, personal statement, personal interview, and demonstrated interest. This shouldn't surprise you based on all the stuff I've talked about tonight, but we know how often you come to our website, at least by your IP address. Then once you apply, we figured that we match those together. We can see those sort of things. That's the same thing that you get cookies on every site that you go to today. College campuses now have things that pop up, say, please be aware that we track to improve your performance, which means that if you're clicking on a lot of same things, we might send you some information about that. Scary, but it's also the reality of where we're at. This is the breakdown of what you're responsible for as a student. Obviously, you need to submit the application. Typically, it's good to work on a resume for a number of reasons, so that you know what activities and organizations you've been part of. When you ask for a recommendation, you can forward that on to the recommender. The essay is important. Test scores, your personal statement, interview or audition, and then some campuses do the demonstrated interest. In terms of letters of recommendation, You should start thinking about that now before you leave for the summer, because your junior year teachers are more likely to be able to give a perspective of who you are. Some of them may retire, some of them may take new jobs, move to a different school in the district. All of that can occur. If you wait till the fall, you may not be able to track down someone. It's not a bad idea to try and start reaching out to people who might be willing to do it. And I will tell you, you'll be ahead of most of your peers, so you might get a better reference and recommendation because they can spend more time in there. Select the right person. Someone, certainly submit the resume with it, and always write a thank you note. I think it's important for people that are going out of their way above and beyond to be acknowledged. The college essay personal statement, this is your introduction. If a student is on the borderline, this is where we're going to dig deeper. We're going to look to see what you say. It's an opportunity to tell us a little bit more about yourself that we don't get anywhere else. Please make sure you proof and edit, maybe have someone else read it. And do not make sure you check if you put a certain school's name in there that it goes to the right school. Every presentation you see from an admissions person reminds you of that. We would not remind you of that unless it happens on a pretty regular basis. And it does. It's not detrimental, but it's part of the preparation. In terms of activities and involvement, understand we know that you have been challenged to be involved in clubs and activities and organizations in this virtual environment. The hybrid environment doesn't lend itself too well to that. Some sports happened, some didn't. We're going to understand that. We're going to take that into consideration. Typically, we're looking for meaningful, sustained community service. We're not looking for the one and dones. We're looking for leadership position, not just you're in every organization the school offers. And understand that employment equals involvement. Employment teaches you life skills, interactional skills, all of that is important, and that's not viewed negatively, okay? Financial aid, very quickly, that's something you don't have to start thinking about until October of your senior year, but October 1st, you can start filing the FAFSA. And for the fall of 22, which is those of you who are juniors tonight, it will be the 2020 tax return. So the tax return that you are about to complete and is due by April 15th is what you will be applying with for your FAFSA, your TAP, and if a school is a private school, they might offer for the CSS, which is a college board, gives a little bit more insight into who you are as a student academically or financially. Obviously, look to community groups for organizations, scholarships, that sort of thing. Companies that your parents work for, merit-based scholarships are also available. Most schools, and I'm confident Corning Painting Post does a regular update about scholarship opportunities that you have as well. I know it says conclusion. I've only got like 30 more minutes, so hang in there, everybody. First, I start with a commercial. Obviously, I'm not driving there. Normally, I would have come out and hopefully next year I'll be in person. If I get invited back, it's usually 50-50 whether anyone ever invites me to speak again. But in terms of Buffalo State, we are in the second largest in New York State. We have about 7,600 total students. 100% of our classes are taught by faculty. We don't use teaching assistants. We don't use grad assistants. When you're in a class at Buffalo State, you have a faculty member in front of you. You see the front of our campus right there. That's Rockwell Hall, one of our original buildings in the central quad. And then off in the distance where that river is, the other side is Canada. So you can see Canada from our residence halls. 79 different undergraduate programs, a lot to choose from. And that 30 seconds of pain is what paid for my visit tonight. Two slides that I want to show you is the college search best practices. And this is clearly something that I will share. It'll be posted on your website. This is what I used for my children. President, chancellor, emperor, they all had to go through this. And you break down each of the colleges, which application you use, the deadlines, the submission goal date. And this is just for you to stay on top of it as you go. And then this is college search best practices. This is more the college cost organizer. And then this is after you start getting acceptances from schools, you see what the total costs are, what the room and board is, what the fees are, the scholarships, and that. I have talked really, really fast and still went over my time by like 30 minutes. So I appreciate everybody hanging in there. And I will click again. My name is Dean. That is my direct phone number. If you call me, that will get through to me. I'm here to, if you can't tell, after 34 years, I'm here to find the best match for you. And if that doesn't include my campus, that's okay. I'm willing to tell you the truth about this process, which I don't think you get from a lot of others in many situations. That's my direct email as well. If you have questions, do not hesitate to reach out to me. With that, I am going to turn it back over and either questions, or we're going to go to IB program, or I'll be quiet.
We don't currently have any questions in the chat, but just a reminder for our attendees, you can post questions by clicking on the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and then we will address those as they come through or at the end.
Again, I'm certainly reachable, and I understand this is overwhelming, and I often think that I'm trying to reduce your stress, but I may not have done that. But understand that multiple students go to school every single year, and I'm available, and most of my profession are. If you ever have a question, call a few offices, call a few financial aid offices, ask those questions. And now I'll stop talking. But thanks for letting me be here tonight.
All right. Jill, it looks like there is a question in there.
We did just have a question in the chat regarding the materials being available from the presentation, and we will post them to our school counseling website. Is that correct, Kaleen?
Yeah, we'll get those materials from Dean and we can post them on our school counseling website. We'll also distribute them to each school counselor as well, so that your school counselor will have them to provide to you as well. All right, any other questions for Dean? Dean, would you mind sticking around till the end in case there are additional questions? Thank you. All right, folks, so the next part, I am gonna just show you a quick search using our Naviance student. So hang on one second, let me get my screen up. Okay, can everybody see my Naviance? Okay. All right, so all right, so Naviance Student is the program that we counselors use that contains several resources for students. It's introduced in grade 9, and we reintroduce it every single year that we meet with your student. Most importantly, seniors will use this site when they are applying to colleges. So your student school counselor will be meeting with your senior, so next fall, one-on-one at the beginning of their senior year, and we'll be going through the application process in great detail with them and how to use Naviance for that application process. But tonight I wanted to go through, since we're talking about searching for colleges, and that's what the goal of tonight is to do a search through Naviance Student. There are several search engines that you can use out there. We typically recommend using Naviance because it's a great program that we have available to us. We also have recommended College Board. College Board is how you sign up for the SAT. They have a pretty good search engine as well. So this is the homepage that comes up when you go into Naviance. And I'm gonna switch to the actual live page. And Henry Hawk tonight is going to do a little college search, and each of your students' email address, their school email address, is their login information. And then they should have a personalized password that they've either created or were given. So if you can see, this is the homepage when you first sign on. What we're going to do is go to the colleges tab, click on the home, and we're going to go directly to Supermatch first. We like Supermatch because it has all of these criteria and all of these options that Dean referenced. And each student is going to be completely different in what is important to them. So one student may want to look into what athletics is available. One student may want to look and see, you know, what types of clubs are available. So obviously, the more criteria you add into this, the more refined your results will be. The less you add in, the more broad they will be. So I do recommend playing around with it a little bit. And just kind of coming up with a few different searches. So each search you do, you can save it over here and you just name each search. So if you're searching for let's say, political science majors in New York State. You could, name it that over there. So what we're gonna do first is I'm gonna go to location, and Henry wants to go to New York or stay in New York. His parents think he should just stay right here close to home. He's not opposed. So we're gonna put that in. So already it's dropped it down to 180 institutions. The next thing is he wants to go to a 4-year school right off the bat. So he knows he at least wants his bachelor's degree. He's gonna go in and type in majors, and today we're gonna do education. So a lot of different options pop up when you're looking at education. Again, I like to keep it as broad as general so you can really see what options you have out there. And then if you need to do a more refined search or get into the college's website and see specifically what they do offer. So we're gonna say general education, and then we're gonna close that out. We're gonna skip over, so admissions, let me just show you this. You can put in your GPA in a 4.0 scale. You would have to convert that. You can put your SAT or ACT scores in. You can look at the acceptance rates and if they accept some of these credits down here. So that is that's a helpful criteria as well. I'm gonna pop over to institution characteristics. And because I know that I want to look at a 4-year college, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of those 2-year colleges. So that eliminated some as well. I'm going to close this out, and I'm going to look at what results I have at this point. So it says there's 31 institutions. So you can see as you scroll down, these are all colleges in New York State with education as a major, 4-year public or private schools. This is the fit score. It tells you that it's 100% your match. You can click on why to see why, and it'll, it basically fits all of these criteria that you've entered. So I'm going to scroll down and just take a look at what schools came up. I see public, I see private, I see small schools, I see larger schools because we didn't refine that search anymore. So when I scroll down, there's Elmira, Keuka. So when you scroll up, what you can also do is go to cost, and say today we're going to look, hang on one second, cost, the maximum tuition, we're going to select, and we're going to say $20,000 today, less than $20,000. So we're going to look at this, and this refined it much more, okay? So most likely it got rid of a lot of those private institutions that are more expensive, okay? So what I see Buff State, imagine that. Look at right there, Buff State.
Ooh.
Hey. So what I'm gonna do is click on Buff State and say, well, that's relatively close to home. It has education as a major. And I'm gonna look a little bit more into this. This is some basic demographic information that it provides right here. Just a brief overview, some quick numbers. Then if you click on studies, it breaks it down a little bit further. So 15:1 student faculty ratio, an average classroom size of 64. Top areas of education, look at that, education, right? Or top areas of study, education is right there. So that's another, that means that this search is working out. This is hitting the money. I'm gonna back up into my search, and I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna pin this, and then I'm going to favorite it because I'm just searching right now. I'm just playing around. I just want to see what else is out there. So I'm also going to go to Suny College of Potsdam. Okay. And you're going to click on this and you can kind of do the same thing. We'll let it load. So again, just an overview. Again, the studies, top areas of study, education is there as well. You can go into student life, admissions, costs. It really does a nice job of just giving you the quick facts, okay? And then you can also just go directly to their website as well, okay? So what we're gonna do is back out of that as well. And I'm gonna say, okay, I'm gonna pin this one to compare, and I'm gonna favorite Potsdam as well. So we're going to scroll down and then we get to 90%. So this is 90%. Why? Because it's missing something small out of what my criteria was up here. So you can either continue to search through these schools, and if you scroll all the way down, there's a show more page. So that's going to take you to the next page. And this number, this fit score, is going to continue to go down as you get further and further along. But what I wanted to show you today is when you go to the pinned section and then you compare. So this gives you an in-depth comparison of these two schools. Okay, so we got Potsdam, Buff State, highlights, location, academics. You know, there's some areas that are unknown, but it is really helpful when you can pull information out and see the side-by-side comparison. So that characteristic is really helpful when looking at colleges. The other thing I did when I pinned them and favorited them, they moved up to the top of my list. So if I went back and I saved this search, these two colleges would remain right at the top, okay? By favoriting this, it's like Pinterest, I love it. By favoriting them, when you go back into the colleges section, and this is the same symbol, you can go to colleges I'm thinking about, and boom, your two schools are right there. So what I tell my students is, you know, this is the perfect time to start creating these searches and to adding to this colleges I'm thinking about. I like to call it your brainstorming list. It's just a great place to start. You can see, you know, again, you can click right on the college right here. You can see that it's a common application school. That's what that CA means. So they accept the common application, both of them. You can look at what types of deadline dates they have. You can pin your interest, your level of interest. So you can say this is a high level, this is a medium level, that can fluctuate. And then you can just remove them if you want to. So you can just go ahead and say, you know, I'm going to remove this college for right now. Again, it's a really nice place, a really nice hub to just kind of create that brainstorming list. And then what you can do is take that list and move them into colleges colleges I'm applying to. You can select them and then add them to your colleges list. And that would be for your senior year, okay? They would move right into the list of colleges that you'll actually be applying to. So one other thing I wanted to show you while we were in here is if you click on college visits, we have listed in here, Mrs. Macda in our counseling department, she does a wonderful job of creating opportunities for students to hear from colleges. This has been a super difficult year to do this, but she's done a wonderful job of bringing a lot of colleges in-house, whether that be virtually. It looks like we're going to have some in our office coming up in the spring. So definitely check this because these are going to be super important. You do have to register ahead of time. They are educationally excused. So if you want to come to a college visit, you're excused from your class. You just have to make up that time and that work. Again, we're going to go through this with our seniors, their senior year, more geared toward the actual application process. So right now we just are focusing on a college search. Are there any questions about Naviance while I'm on here? And I cannot see the Q&A at all.
Yes, hold on just a second. There is a question for Dean. There were not any Naviance questions. Dean, the question is, how would you rank the important college admissions criteria, GPA, standardized test scores, extracurriculars, community service, course difficulty in high school, etc., that college admission officials look at? What criteria is most important for a high school student to focus on?
Good question, and that's the million-dollar question. You know, oftentimes admissions people answer everything is important, but if I had to pick out specifically what you need to focus on, it's your cumulative average. That's primarily what gets you that first look. If your cumulative average is too low, that student is not going to get dug deeper in. If we were going to look at a school in a traditional year with test scores, the test score is a little bit higher, the average can be a little bit lower. If the average is a little bit higher, the test score can be a little bit lower. But in most cases, those are the first two criteria that a lot of campuses use. A student whose GPA is significantly below what our traditional admit is for any of the campuses is not going to get really a secondary look. You can have, you know, written 3 books and done amazing things. That's awesome. But if you are out of that range of possible admits, that's not going to get you forward. So of the list that you gave, I would say the GPA and it's the 3-year average is primary. And if a student is a borderline student, there's a possibility that we might ask for mid-year grades of the senior year. That's usually an indication that the school is not yet sold on you and wants to see how you do through the first part of that senior year. So that's important. All of the other things that you mentioned, extracurriculars, community service, that is stuff that will, and essays and employment and volunteer, that is stuff that will help you if you are in that bubble range, okay? If you're not a clear admit, not a clear deny, that's where we're gonna dig deeper. That's where we look at essays. This may come as a total shock to you, but you know, with 16,000 applications and 8 of us that do file review, we may not read everything cover to cover. And schools that say that they read everything, in a smaller school, that's a possibility. But I sat on a panel a few years ago where a school in Boston, with Boston in its name, that gets 55,000 applications a year, told me that they spend 25 minutes on each application. And I said, so you're reviewing what, 3-4 years ago? The one thing that you did include though in the question that I do want to address is the difficulty, course difficulty in high school. And this is something that you should always be working with your counselor on, parents on, and also individual course teachers. And what I mean by that is, where you can jam yourself up is you challenge yourself with an IB or an AP or an honors course, and then you don't do very well in it. There is certainly a weighting that can be factored in for some of those courses, but that 3-year average is really the determinant factor in a lot of things that get started there. And I know we can have more discussion on that if there's more questions in regards to that. I always say, you know, the easy answer is, you know, get an A and everything and you're all set. Challenge yourself to your ability, but if you're not going to be doing well, you know, in the 70s and you know, a 2.0, 2.1, 2.2, that's problematic. You should probably not be taking that course. And that's, I never say that definitively. That's, you need to come into consultation with the counselors and your individual teachers to talk about what level you should challenge yourself at. And I think we'll probably talk about that when we get to the IB as well.
Thank you. We have another question. Can parents get access to Naviance, or do we need to do this using our student's account? And so you can use your student's account, and we just want to reiterate that really we want to see students being the ones doing the majority of the research. So students should be able to share their login information with you, but if you want access as a parent, we can share a registration code with you or register you for Naviance. You would just need to reach out to your student school counselor to get that set up. And Kaleen, if you wanted to add anything to that, go ahead.
No, I think you covered it. Yeah, there's definitely an ability for parents to have their own account and just reach out to your counselor to get that registration code so that you can register. But all of the application materials, I just do want to be clear about this, must be done through the student's account, not a parent's account. The parent's account would solely be just to kind of poke around, do searches, things like that, which you could also do on your student's account with their login information as well.
And the next question piggybacks on that. Naviance is for the student, right? The answer to that is yes, but parents can help with it. How do parents see or keep up with the progress the student is making in the software? And there's really not a way for you to monitor that other than just talking with your student, with your child about what they're doing, sitting down and maybe they'll show you. I think Dean touched on that a little bit, just making sure that you're having the conversations, making sure that they're progressing along with the materials that we're sending home, the checklists that we're sending home. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Kaleen.
Just to be clear, the application, the college application is separate from Naviance. So you can just get access to your student's application. And I know with the common application, you know, you get green check marks. This is done, this section is done, this one is done, this one still needs work to be completed. And then the checklist that Dean shared is a really great resource to kind of, you know, monitor what's been done and what still needs to be done. So do they still need to request letters of recommendation? And then when the student has done that, they check it off. I think that is an excellent resource that he has.
Okay, this next question is about Naviance college searches. Can a parent's search be shared with or ported over to the student? That's a great question, and I don't know the answer to that. I think not, though. I think they would be separate accounts.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. Okay, so your school counselor has recently met with all of their juniors to do scheduling for their senior year. In these meetings, we oftentimes talk about, you know, the up and coming, the spring of the junior year. Some counselors have addressed to-do lists and have had the conversations with their juniors already about what is forthcoming in the spring. And some of us are going to be looping back around with some of our juniors to touch base on this process a little bit later in the spring once scheduling is over with. So again, I just do want to reiterate, if at any time you feel it necessary to meet with your school counselor, we are always available. We can do Google Meets. We can do, you know, certain in-person meetings as well. But we either have been meeting or will meet with them as well. So this is a planning calendar that we share on our school counseling webpage. It looks a little bit different on the webpage. And then each counselor provides this to our students in one way, shape, or form. So they may look a little bit different. And while this does look overwhelming, this is a lot of information on this front and back page of paper. I think the point of it also is to be as comprehensive as possible to fit each and every student's needs. You know, one student may have a totally different need than another. And so to capture everything and all of the information that we want to get to you guys, this is really the only way to do it. So while we apologize that it's a lot of information, it's necessary. So these, you can either ask your school counselor for one of these. They're also on our website as well. And then again, you know, kind of our marching orders for us counselors when we meet with our juniors is to really prioritize at this point, college searches, you know, making sure that you are creating a list that fits your needs, your students' needs. And then again, to sign up for that SAT or ACT this spring. And then if need be, your fallback would be the fall, because really what we emphasize is the goal is to walk into your senior year prepared with a roadmap. What is this going to look like? What is my senior year going to look like? Where am I applying? When am I applying? When are the deadlines? And have that as prepared as possible, because senior year gets busy fast and you don't want to miss anything. So as much as you can get done this spring and this summer, it's really to your benefit to do that. So that's all we have tonight. Again, if there's more questions.
There is a new question in the chat, Kaleen.
Great.
When can a student interested in early action start working on their application? And so it's going to depend on which application you use. The common application I believe opens August 1st each year to start working on, and that's true for the Coalition app as well. And I don't know, Dean, if you're
Suny as well. We all try and stick to that August 1st date.
So that's great. If your student wants to start working on these things over the summer.
Absolutely, and you have access. You can create your Common App profile today. You can log into Common App, which is primarily where I would think a lot of students would be applying if they're applying to both schools. So certainly you can start working on that. And as I said, the Common App prompts for the essay are out for next year as well. So you can look those up. You can just Google Common App prompts, because everything else in the application is really biographical stuff that you're going to know the answer to. And then the only other thing is the activities portion, where you list the different activities you've been involved with from freshman year on.
All right, and next question, do you recommend an ACT or an SAT being taken over the summer?
I recommend both in the spring, and then repeating in the fall that which they did better on or felt more comfortable doing. Students will typically see a 100-point jump if they get one of the exams done and then they do some practice on it. With the SAT, you can actually now pair your College Board account with Khan Academy, and Khan actually gets the results, which you don't necessarily get, but they get the results of where you had weaknesses on taking the SAT, and then they can craft a program specifically drafting up what it is that you need to focus on. And you can answer 5 or 6 questions a day, and you just spend it and you spread it out over time. Having said that, that has been what my recommendation has been for years. Take both in the spring of your junior year, repeat one in the fall. Obviously, things are a little bit different now that more schools are going to be test optional, but without clearer information right now, that's my recommendation for juniors. And they're both different exams in terms of what they test. They're a little bit more similar than they have been in the past. ACT throws in a natural sciences and a social sciences area, where the other one is just evidence-based reading and writing and math, where it's English, math. Yeah, so there's a little bit, and that's why I say take both. And you know, there are concordance tables to show you what an SAT score is to an ACT. Campuses will take either, and we'll take mix or match. If you take the SAT more than once, we'll take the highest evidence-based reading and writing, highest math, and combine those to a score as well.
Thank you. And our next question, what does a student resume look like?
I have mentioned that a few times, and I think this is more important for a student to start, and I defer to the counselors on this, but it's more important for you to specifically have a list of the activities, the clubs, the organizations that you've been involved with, both in school, out of school, church-related, club, organization, volunteer service. Just having that at hand is useful for when you apply, fill out the application, but also when you do scholarships, when you need to have all of this stuff at your hands so that you can answer. Even when you ask for a recommendation from a teacher or a counselor, they have something they can build off of. So I'll turn it over to you guys though to see how you build that in, or if it's sometimes it's called a brag sheet or activity list or.
So I can actually present really quickly. I believe. On Naviance, there is an option to create a resume right in Naviance. So when you go in here in Naviance, you go to the About Me tab. Can you guys see this screen? Am I good? About Me tab, and then you go to My Stuff, Resume, and we show all of our students this option. They can create a resume right here on Naviance and use these cue points to build it. So grades 9 through 12 is what would be included. Teachers in the building and school counselors who you request a letter from will have access to this through our Naviance page. So it's not even anything that they have to print out and give to us. We can just access it right from our Naviance page. If they want to print it out, they can print it out. But this is just another great option in in Naviance that it offers.
It looks like that's it for questions for right now, but as Kaleen said, just reach out to any of us anytime with more.
Yep, thank you everybody for coming to our event tonight. We appreciate your time. We know it's a beautiful night out, but thank you for attending. And again, as Jill said, just let us know if there's any questions. If you have questions specifically about AP scores, AP testing, IB testing, Mrs. Radford would be your contact for that information. So Dean, thank you once again for being here tonight. We greatly appreciate your expertise and your time. We can't thank you enough. I think we'll have you back. I think that'd be good.
Happy to come back. And as you can tell, this is challenging for me. I just don't like speaking in public, but this process is an evolution. It's not a one and done. And there are people here to help you. The reason why I work on a college campus is because I like this population. And I didn't mention this before, but students, you need to take ownership of this. I enjoy speaking to students much more than parents. I have to talk to parents. That's part of my job. They can get rid of me if I don't. But certainly if you take the ownership and you make that call, even if your parents are in the background, giving you advice, that's more beneficial, because that's when you get to campus, you're going to have to self-advocate for yourself. Mom and dad can't help at that point. So take ownership of this process.
Just a quick plug as well. Every senior in our building writes their college essay in senior English. If you are in the honors class, the IB-HL Lit class, we will also write a scholarship essay. So keep those things in mind. So as you log in August 1st and as you negotiate that parent-child timetable, keep in mind that one of the things that we do early on in senior English, regardless of your level, is write that essay.
Great, thanks, Christy. That's a great point. All right, well, thank you guys all again for attending tonight. Have a wonderful evening. And Dean, once again, thank you. Take care, everyone.